Our opening words today are by the Reverend Marta Valentin. It is a passage entitled, Gratitude to My Ancestors. With honor and respect, these eyes see for you things of life that you could not have imagined. My lips move with the rhythm of your words, flowing through me. My tongue caresses each morsel of wisdom I am graced to pass on. Your DNA rides my veins, and with every breath that I take, your cautious steps from the past toward a fuller life become bold moves I make toward my own destiny. And now together we wrap our arms around a new generation, here to become who they were born to be, to cast their own magic as we once did, and bless each day for their ability to do so. For you, dear ancestors, we live this day. Our opening hymn is number 1000 in the Teal hymnal, Morning Has Come. Please rise in body or spirit.
So welcome to First Parish in Bedford, a Unitarian Universalist congregation where we come together every week as a people with diverse beliefs and a shared commitment to bring more peace, more love, and more justice into the world. That is right. Absolutely. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whether you worship one God, many gods, or no God, you are welcome here. I want to say a special welcome to all of our visitors this morning, here in person, out in the Zoomosphere. We are so delighted you are with us on this beautiful fall Sunday morning. In the sanctuary, you are invited to fill out a blue connection card, which you will find at the end of the pews. You can fill it out, give it to one of the ushers during the offering, or leave it at the welcome table. We will add you to our mailing list. In Zoom, we'll put a link in the chat. You can fill it out as a virtual connection card. Parents and caregivers of little ones, there's a nursery available downstairs for your convenience, but we are always super happy to have our littlest ones here in the sanctuary with us as well. After the service, there's coffee, tea, and fellowship in the common room. Everyone is welcome to join us. There's also a quiet space available to gather upstairs in room 201. A couple of announcements today. First, I want to draw your attention to the announcements section in the order of service so you don't miss out on any important information. Check out those announcements when you have time. And then additionally, I want to say first a big thank you to the music committee. Last night, their folk music concert had over 50 people attending and raised over $650. So thank you to everyone involved in that. And then our second announcement, the annual Interfaith Kristallnacht service will be this coming Saturday, November 9th at 5 p.m. on the Commons. So Kristallnacht, or the Night of the Broken Glass, November 9th, 1938, was the beginning of anti-Jewish violence in Nazi Germany. So each year to commemorate Kristallnacht, the Bedford interfaith clergy, the Bedford Jewish community, Bedford citizens and neighbors from nearby towns gather on the town common to light candles, toll the bell, and be together in community and solidarity. So please plan to gather at 5 p.m. this Saturday on the Common if you would like to attend this service. Now, if you will please rise again, we will share our unison affirmation, which is in your order of service. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. El amor es el espíritu de esta iglesia, y el servicio es su ley. Este es nuestro gran pacto, vivir juntos en paz, buscar la verdad en espíritu de amor, y ayudarnos los unos a los otros. Please be seated.
Good morning. So this story is called Layla and the Tree of Memory. So once upon a time, there was a young girl named Layla who spent her summers with her grandmother, Nana Rose, in a little house nestled between the mountains and a wide, mysterious forest. The forest was magical, but it wasn't the kind of magic that glitters with spells. No, this forest was full of ancient, hidden stories waiting for someone to discover them. So one day after Layla tripped over a gnarled root, Nana Rose shared something mysterious and said, "That tree you just tripped over, that's the great tree of memory." Layla tilted her head. "Is that why it tried to grab my foot?" "Maybe," said Nana. "But it's the oldest tree in this forest. Your great-great-great-great-grandfather, Samson, planted it long ago. And here's the secret. If you place your hand on it and close your eyes, it'll share memories of our family with you." "Really? Like a movie?" asked Layla. "Well, not exactly," responded Nana Rose. "But these are no ordinary movies. They're memories of resilience and courage. Every one of our ancestors who needed a little reminder of their strength has come to this tree and left a piece of themselves here behind." So Layla didn't waste another second. She placed her small hand on its rough bark, she closed her eyes, and at first felt only the soft breeze and heard the chirping of the birds. But then slowly she began to see images flickering in her mind, like watching a strange but captivating old film. The first memory she saw was of Samson himself, the great-great-great-grandfather. He was building a small cabin with nothing but his bare hands and an axe. Well, maybe I should have written more. It takes more than just those two things. But his shirt was torn and his face streaked with sweat, but he didn't stop. "Gotta make a home," she heard him whisper, "so my children's children's children can grow strong on this land." And Layla felt some pride. Then the images shifted, and she saw a young woman named Josephine with a bright, determined smile sitting in a small one-room schoolhouse. The numbers 1932 flashed. 1932. And Josephine was the only one in her family who had made it to that school. Her shoes were a bit too small, her dress had been mended more times than Layla could count, but Josephine's eyes sparkled as she held up a dog-eared book like it was a treasure map and read aloud. Then Layla felt the scene change again. She was standing knee-deep in mud with her great-grandfather Robert, who was a young soldier in the middle of a muddy, chaotic battlefield. Rain poured down, turning the ground into a slippery mess, but Robert didn't hesitate. He lifted friend by friend and friend, one by one, carrying them safely with fierce determination. "And when I get back home," she heard him mutter to himself, his voice tired but steady, "I'll plant trees for peace. Someday, my family will grow up in a world where trees, not wars, take up land." Layla could feel his strength, his wish for a kinder world, and his love for his family shining through even the hardest times. The memories flowed one after another, each showing an ancestor facing hardship, finding strength, and sharing that strength with others. By the time the images faded, Layla's heart and mind were full. She ran back to Nana Rose, buzzing with excitement. "Nana, I saw Samson building a cabin, and Josephine learning to read, and Robert helping people out of the mud." And Nana Rose smiled. "You now carry their resilience. Their memories are like roots deep within you." Layla thought for a moment, then declared, "I'm going to add my own memory to one of these trees one day. Something brave." Nana Rose hugged her. "You're already brave, my girl." And from that day on, Layla knew she had a forest of ancestors behind her. Each one a story, each one a root stretching out beneath her feet to help her grow. Now let us sing our children to class.
Good morning. I'm Sandy Bosnowski, a member of the lay pastoral care team. And if you have a joy or a concern you'd like to come forward and share, please hold the mic next up towards your mouth and focus your thoughts and be brief. And please keep it to personal concerns. Thank you. And of course, one more candle for those thoughts and care and sorrows and joys that we keep in the sanctuary of our hearts. I'll be by the candle stand after the service. If you'd like to light a candle, we'll find space for them.
let's take a breath together. If you'll join me in an attitude of prayer or reflection. We begin with a poem by Mary Oliver called Messenger. My work is loving the world. Here the sunflowers, there the hummingbird, equal seekers of sweetness. Here the quickening yeast, there the blue plums, here the clam deep in the speckled sand. Are my boots old? Is my coat torn? Am I no longer young and still half perfect? Let me keep my mind on what matters, which is my work, which is mostly standing still and learning to be astonished. The phoebe, the delphinium, the sheep in the pasture and the pasture, which is mostly rejoicing since all the ingredients are here, which is gratitude to be given a mind and a heart and these body clothes, a mouth with which to give shouts of joy to the moth and the wren, to the sleepy dug-up clam, telling them all over and over how it is that we live forever. Spirit of life and love, in times of joy and in times of sorrow, amidst our private aches and pains, triumphs and longings and distractions, and with all the uncertainties of the world bumping up against us, in our worries about what may be, help us to find space to attend to our real work, which is loving the world and loving each other. Amen. Our meditation hymn is number 123, Spirit of Life. You can remain seated. Every month, on the first Sunday of the month, it is the practice of this congregation to share half of the Sunday offering with a worthy organization which is chosen by you in partnership with the Social Responsibility Council. And this Sunday, to tell us more about that cause, I invite up Sarah Dorr.
Good morning, everyone. I want to thank the Social Responsibility Council for making the suggestion of having this Sunday's, half of this Sunday's offering going to the Bedford Food Bank. I've been working the food bank for almost 5 years, every single week, and I thought I would share a little bit about it, especially for those of you that are not necessarily in town. The Bedford Food Bank, in its current configuration, was created in March of 2020, a week after Governor Baker declared the state of emergency for Massachusetts due to COVID. Since then, we've distributed food to Bedford residents and others every week. The Bedford Food Bank is run by the Bedford's Department of Health and Human Services, with oversight by 1 full-time employee, 2 part-time employees, and approximately 80 hours of volunteer service every single week. The volunteers range in age from high school students who come after school to those of us that are retired. The operation runs out of Bedford's yellow Town Center building, across from Town Hall, with a drive-through distribution and home delivery happening on Thursday afternoons. This is a service that's available to all households for whom accessing no-cost, nutritious food and household supplies is useful. Each week, the clients receive a bag of shelf-stable food, a bag of frozen meat or fish, garden-grown vegetables when they're in season, eggs or milk, and miscellaneous bread products. We are really grateful to the donations from such organizations as the Greater Boston Food Bank, Food Link from Arlington, Gaining Ground in Concord, Dignity Matters, as well as from monetary donations from the community so that we can purchase items that are not otherwise donated. In a community such as Bedford, we don't necessarily think of food insecurity as something that exists. However, that is not the case. The number of families who are accessing the food bank continues to grow. At the moment, each week, we have approximately 180 families between the drive-through and the home delivery, which account for over 300 individuals of all ages. While our food bank is available to residents of other communities, and we do have a handful that come from Carlisle, Concord, Lexington, Billerica, and Lowell, the vast majority of our clients are Bedford residents. Everyone who comes to us weekly shares their appreciation. So your generosity today will allow us to continue to support our neighbors in need. Thank you.
This is the first conscious memory I have of my life. That is, this is the earliest memory I retain from my childhood. I was outside on the front lawn of our little house on Leith Street in Fort Wayne, Indiana. My older brother, who I worshipped, was playing Frisbee with his friends. In place of an actual Frisbee, they were using an old license plate. "Throw it to me," I said excitedly. "Throw it to me." Someone did. My second memory is of my mother applying a miracle substance called Bactine, ubiquitous in my childhood, to the cut on my lip where the license plate had connected. I had caught it with my face. That is my first memory of life. Things did improve from there. I have only one other memory from that house. A neighbor girl came over and asked for a carrot, and my mother gave her one. That's it. We moved away from the house when I was very little. The evening of our move, my mother tells me there was a terrible storm, actually, and my mother anxiously watched a funnel cloud beginning to form over our car as we pulled away. I don't remember this at all, but it is the closest I ever got to a tornado in all my 50-plus years in Indiana. I've never seen an actual tornado. I only know this story from my mother recounting it. Memory is a funny thing. Patchwork, imperfect, unreliable, and yet it is the raw material out of which we construct the narratives that shape our understanding of who we are. Our memories and the memories that are handed down to us as shared stories and family lore. With the hindsight of experience, I can only imagine now what a stressful evening that must have been for my parents the night of that move. My parents would have been young, broke, juggling a move and two little kids, probably with unreliable transportation, if later history is to be any judge, in the middle of a severe thunderstorm, the kind that spawns tornadoes. But they got through it, and we moved to the other little house, where I spent most of the remainder of my childhood, and where things were mostly good, and sometimes hard, and where my parents managed to weather most of the storms that came our family's way, such that I was mostly unaware of the clouds forming overhead, and able to focus on the important things in childhood, like learning and exploring the neighborhood on my bike, and Star Wars. My parents were 20 years old when they got married in 1967, an age that was pretty unremarkable at that time and seems remarkably young to me now. My older brother was born in 1969, so in 1968, the first year of their marriage, while they were expecting the arrival of their first child, the world around them was in absolute tumult. Dr. King was killed. Robert Kennedy was killed. There was rioting in the Democratic National Convention. Young men my dad's age were being drafted and sent off to fight and die in Vietnam. My mom remembers that period of history as a time of great hope, when it seemed as if the potential for positive change was almost limitless. And she remembers that year in particular as terrible and tragic. That hope somehow devolving into violence, and something was lost. And yet, amidst all that upheaval, and amidst all those shocking setbacks, she says remarkable and enduring changes were made for the better. That is what she remembers. And what I think now mostly is, what a stressful context in which to be starting a family. And I understand some of the storm clouds of those early childhood years a little better. And I think about how through all of that uncertainty, when it must surely have felt a little bit like the world was losing its mind, at least a little bit, my parents remained committed to and worked for a vision of the larger good that included working for peace, racial justice, women's rights, labor rights, the environment, LGBTQ rights, of course not with that language, and progressive education. There was actually quite an active progressive movement in Fort Wayne, Indiana in the 1970s and 1980s. And in between raising 2 and then 3 kids, and often working 2 and sometimes 3 jobs just to keep food on the table, my parents were a part of that movement, and they raised us right in the middle of it. And that is where I absorbed the values that later carried me into Unitarian Universalism, where I could connect my personal values, my family-derived values, in a new way to the witness of our living tradition, and where I could claim a new set of ancestors, my spiritual ancestors in Unitarian Universalism. Because this was the same era in which so many Unitarian Universalists answered Dr. King's call to join the civil rights movement in the South, the struggle in which Reverend James Reeb and Viola Liuzzo gave their lives. This was an era when UU churches across the country were organizing underground networks to get women access to safe abortions. This was an era of UU draft resistance and protest for peace. This was an era when UUs were on the front lines of establishing the nascent environmental movement. This was an era where UU churches were doing compassionate AIDS ministry. This is an era when we wrote sexist language out of our principles, and when women and LGBTQ people began to enter into and transform our membership and our lay leadership. This was an era when we created the best sex education program in the country and made it available to young people, which today we know as our Whole Lives program, which is happening at First Parish right now. And this church, First Parish in Bedford, was certainly a part of that collective story. The ministry that we do today stands on the shoulders of all of that collective daring and dreaming that preceded us, of all that courageous and faithful action that imagined a better and a more beautiful world and then worked for it, even when it seemed like the world around was maybe falling a little bit apart. And maybe it was ever so. We raised our own family, Suzanne and I, in the context of the post-9/11 world. My grandparents came of age during World War II. As young people, they had to deal with Hitler, a thing which I cannot imagine. My grandparents both served. My grandmother on my mom's side ran away to enlist in the Royal Canadian Nursing Corps at the age of 17. Her parents were thrilled. And of course, I know that Hitler lost, and I know that they made it through, but they didn't know that while they were going through it. They didn't know the outcome. And so their courage is something that I come back to when my own fears about the state of the world are present on my mind. People are resilient. People can do hard things, and people can do very ordinary things during anxious times that it turns out are extraordinarily important. Raise their kids with love and care, stand by their neighbors, improve their communities in ways large and small, and observe their civic duties with integrity. And as a pure aside, I want to say it was inspiring to go to early vote this week at Town Hall and observe all of the volunteer election workers carrying out their duties with care and integrity, knowing that this is happening in thousands of communities all around the country. So I want to say a sincere thank you to everyone involved in making that happen. Maybe you have ancestors in your own life, familial or spiritual or chosen ancestors who serve as symbols of resistance or resilience for you. We talk often about the importance of doing things in community so that we don't have to feel that we're facing life's challenges alone. Community also extends forwards and backwards into time. We are connected by memory and story, and sometimes in very concrete ways, to communities of ancestors whose wisdom we can draw on, whose example can serve as models for our own behavior, whose actions and choices can spark and inspire inspiration and courage, and who sometimes, it is true, serve as cautionary tales or examples of what not to do, right? Our ancestors are surely complicated and imperfect just as we are, but learning their stories and finding our own place in the community of time can be an important source of spiritual resilience for us as we face the challenges and opportunities of our own day. Yesterday was Day of the Dead, also known as All Souls Day, also celebrated as Dia de los Muertos, also celebrated as Holotok Napia by our Transylvanian Unitarian ancestors and observed here at First Parish as well. Day of the Dead follows All Saints' Day in the Christian tradition and All Hallows' Eve, which is also Samhain in the pagan tradition, right? So this is a time of year when the veil between worlds is said to become thinner. And many cultures enter into closer communion with their departed ancestors. And I invite you to take this opportunity to deepen your own spiritual connection with your ancestors, familial or spiritual or chosen ancestors. This is a good time to learn or to retell their stories, to offer our thanks for the gifts they have given us, to acknowledge honestly the complexities of their lives, and to get clearer about the ways in which our own longings and our own choices might be different. And knowing that we will be the ancestors in turn for some future generation, it matters the choices we make. It matters how we live our lives. It matters the energy we are putting out into the world, because we are weaving our own tapestry of health and harm for the next generations. This is humbling. Life is tender, and we are imperfect, as are those who came before. And so this dance between the generations calls us to gratitude and compassion. And it encourages us to take responsibility for our own role in the creation of this community through time. This community that is sustained in memory and story, because the actions we take, from the extraordinary to the extraordinarily ordinary, will someday be the stories that others tell, the stories that cast a vision for how the world can be. And one very important thing that spiritual communities do, in my opinion, one of the most important things that they do, is cast a vision through and beyond their own time, through and beyond their own moment. Because this moment that we call now is frequently a tumultuous and an uncertain place in which to be and to act. I think about my grandparents and the world they faced. I think about my parents and the world they faced. And then I think about the world as it is now, the world my young adult children face. And in times of so much uncertainty, so much upheaval, and of so many crises, real and imagined, so many outrages, real and imagined, that clamor for our immediate attention, it is the role of a spiritual community like ours to attend to the moment as best we can, to do the extraordinary and ordinary things we are called to do, but also to cast a vision through and beyond this moment. We cast a vision when our words and our actions and our choices are not just a response to the exigencies and the anxieties of this moment, but reflect our deepest values and our deepest convictions about how this world can be and what kind of world is possible, even when it seems wholly impossible in this moment. Think of all our Unitarian and Universalist and Unitarian Universalist ancestors, who by their words and deeds cast a vision of peace and love and freedom and justice, so that in our own time we will not be lacking for inspiration and encouragement, and so that we will know that our pursuit of this vision is not a lonely endeavor, but there are generations of strivers and seekers and dreamers and survivors who stand with us. And so then we in turn, in our own day, with our own words and deeds and choices deeply rooted in UU values, can sustain the community of memory and story through time, so that those on the other side of this moment are not left without resources, are not left without vision, so they have the support of the ancestors that they will need for their own resilience, for their own flourishing, for their own dreaming and doing. This is what we are called to do. This is who we are called to be. This is love transforming the world faithfully through time. May it be so. So to close out our service today, in honor of this season, we're going to do a short ritual to honor and thank our ancestors. And for the purposes of this ritual, when we talk about ancestors, we mean those about who we can say, because they were, we are. Because they were, I am. So we're talking about those people who loved us into being, to quote the great Fred Rogers, right? Those who shaped or sustained us with their resources, their energy, their attention, those whose ideas and dreams pointed the way to our own. Those who opened doors for us in the material world or in the realm of your imagination. So it could be your grandfather, it could be a favorite teacher or a neighbor who lived down the street, or a friend group, the artist or musician who most inspired you. You get to decide what ancestor means for you today. And what we're going to do is, first, we're going to take some breaths and center ourselves. So I invite you to take a nice, easy breath. We're going to use a chime for this exercise, so I'm going to sound the singing bowl twice. And the first time it sounds, invite into your memory those ancestors, literal or spiritual, who've loved you into being, who've inspired or shaped or supported you. And only invite in the memories it is safe for you to invite in today, right? Only invite in the ancestors you are willing to receive. We are inviting into this place and this time those who have loved us into being, as this is a house of love and peace. When we ring the bell a second time, I invite you to say the names out loud of any of those ancestors who you want to name and honor. So we ring the bell the first time, bring them into your memory. When I ring it the second time, about 30 seconds later, I invite you to say their name. Inviting the ancestors into our memory. If you wish, say their name. Barbara Norman, Genevieve Rieger. Now, when I next ring the bell, invite into your awareness a recognition of a gift that your ancestors have given you. This gift could be memories, it could be love, it could be a feeling of being known, it could be a talent or a strength, a resource or a tradition. You get to decide what is a gift. When I ring the bell, reflect on the gifts that your ancestors have given you. And when I ring it the second time, a few seconds later, you can name some of those gifts by speaking them aloud or just saying them quietly to yourself. Or you can name the ancestor who gave them to you. So again, ring the bell once to remember and a second time to name and honor. Inviting in gifts. You can name the gifts or name the giver. Helping my parents do some of that. Curiosity. Healing. And finally, we're going to ring the bell in gratitude. So when I ring the bell the first time, recall any ancestors you wish to thank for any reason. And when I ring the bell the second time, you can thank them by just saying out loud or quietly to yourself, thank you to anyone who you want to thank. So we'll ring it once to remember and once for gratitude. Thank you to anyone you want to thank. In the spirit of love, in the spirit of peace, may we honor the memory of those who came before us. May we honor their unique strengths, talents, quirks, and capabilities, many of which we see in ourselves. Their bodies are gone, but we are the continuation of their bodies. May we honor with gratitude the gifts they have given us, the sacrifices they have made for us, the work done, the pleasures deferred. May we be wise stewards of the treasure that they have stored and passed down to us. The time of their work has passed, but we are the continuation of their striving. May we honor their wisdom. May we remember their lessons, the knowledge accumulated over many lifetimes, the hard-won truth of their experience. Their time for speaking is past, but their words live on in us and through us. May we honor with humility their failings. They were people like us, imperfect, frail, subject to the shortcomings of their own time. We ask for compassion for their humanity, knowing that we will fail in turn. We ask for relief for our own hurts. We ask for healing, perhaps even in our own families. May we honor with courage their hope for the future, their vision for a better world which has been entrusted now to us. We are not bound by the particulars of their vision, but we ask that we may be worthy of its spirit. Their time for dreaming is past, but we are the living embodiment of their dreams. In remembering our ancestors' dreams, their strengths, their gifts to us, and their sacrifices, may we come to a deeper place of faith in our own gifts and capacities, and a deeper determination to build a better world for the next generation. Blessed be, and amen. Our closing hymn today is number 96, I Cannot Think of Them as Dead. Please rise in body or spirit. Our closing words again are by Mary Oliver. I look upon time as no more than an idea, and I consider eternity as another possibility, and I think of each life as a flower, as common as a field daisy and as singular. When it's over, I want to say, all my life, I was a bride married to amazement. I was the bridegroom taking the world into my arms. We who are living, may we embrace life in its wonder and its finitude with gratitude, with humility and compassion. And may we make a regular practice, too, to pause, to remember, and to give thanks to all who came before. Amen, and go in peace.